This video is the second part of the Rules of Concord series. Check the link in the video description for the first video to follow along with the rules. Before I commence with the rules, here is a brief summary of the meaning of concord. Concord is a grammatical concept that focuses on the relationship between subject and verb in sentences, showing how verbs must agree with subjects to form grammatical sentences. Rule 7, Parenthetical Concord. Parenthetical Concord rule states that the subject of a sentence determines whether the verb will be singular or plural. The phrase marked off from the subject by commas does not determine the number of the verb. The rule is identified as Parenthetical Concord because the phrases marked off from the sentences by commas are likened to words in parenthesis, hence the name. Observe the following. The teacher, not the principal, comes to school early. The bullies, not the quiet kids, are always bunking class. Mr. Johnson, not the cheerleaders, cheers very loudly for his team. The number of the verbs, singular or plural, in the examples above, are determined by the subjects and not in any way influenced by the parenthetical phrases. Rule 8, Accompaniment Concord. Accompaniment Concord rule states that the subject of a sentence is what determines whether the verb is singular or plural, and the phrases accompanying the subject and appearing before the verb do not influence the number of the verb. Some phrases used to introduce nouns before verbs in sentences after the main subject include the following, as well as together, with, not excluding, along with, etc. Observe the following. Matthew together with his friends knows how to play the guitar. The staff members as well as the chief executive officer were at the meeting. The teacher not excluding her students was at the scene. Only the main subject determines the number of the verb, not the accompanying nouns or nominal elements. Rule 9, Collective Concord. Collective Concord, as the name implies, has to do with collective nouns and how they determine whether the verb in a sentence will be singular or plural. Collective nouns are nouns that refer to a group as a single unit acting as a whole and such typically take a singular verb. Observe, the team is ready for the match. However, there are cases when they take plural verbs, which is when members of such groups act independently and not together as a unit. Observe the following. The audience are being rowdy. The staff are rioting for an increase in wages. The Collective Concord rule states that collective nouns take a singular verb when they act as a unit, but take a plural verb when members of the group represented by collective nouns act independently. Rule 10, Indefinite Concord. There, Indefinite Concord rule states that when indefinite pronouns such as anybody, everybody, someone, somebody, everything, anything, each, one, none, etc., serve as the subject of a sentence, the verb is always singular. Observe the following. Each one of you is invited to the party. Everybody wants to be treated with respect. Anything is possible if you put your heart to it. Rule 11, More Than Concord. There, More Than Concord rule states that the number of the subject that follows, more than, in a sentence determines the number of the verb. That is, if the subject following it is singular, the verb will be singular, and if the subject is plural, the verb will also be plural. Observe the following. More than one student lives in this hostel. More than 2 apples are on the table. More than 10 citizens were awarded for good conduct. Rule 12, Relative Concord. The Relative Concord rule states that when a subject in a sentence is followed by a relative clause, only the subject determines the number of the verb as being singular or plural and not the clause. Observe the following. One of the fishermen, who visit the great river, has a bright talent. The teacher who called for an emergency meeting has an amazing voice. The students who saw what happened yesterday have been afraid ever since. Stay tuned for the third part of this series. See you soon.